Northern Michigan has a year it is supposed to fear. Not every year, not every full moon, not even every generation. Only the years that end in 7. According to the legend, something first appeared in the forests of Michigan in 1887. Then the stories returned in 1897, 1917, 1937, 1957, 1967, 1977, and finally in 1987, when most of America first heard its name, the Michigan Dogman. Witnesses describe a creature that seems caught between two forms. It has the head of a wolf or large dog, the body of a powerful animal, and eyes that reflect amber or pale blue in the darkness. It can run on 4 legs, but when it knows it has been seen, it rises onto 2. Then it watches. The pattern has been repeated for nearly 40 years. The Dogman supposedly returns once every decade, always during a year ending in 7. It is now 2026. If the legend's calendar is correct, the next return is almost here. But the real mystery is not whether something is hiding in the forests of Michigan. It is who created the calendar. Because when the Dogman timeline is traced backwards, the pattern begins to collapse. Some of its most famous encounters cannot be verified. Others entered the story only after people had been told which years mattered. And hidden inside a radio broadcast from 1987 is the real reason people are already waiting for the creature to return. Most monsters belong to places. The Loch Ness Monster belongs to a lake. The Jersey Devil belongs to the Pine Barrens. Bigfoot belongs to the enormous wilderness of North America. The Michigan Dogman belongs to a date. That makes the legend unusually effective. If a creature appears randomly, nobody can prepare for it. If it appears constantly, the fear eventually becomes familiar. But 10 years is long enough for evidence to disappear, witnesses to grow old, and communities to forget where one version of the story ended and another began. Then the 7th year returns, and the legend wakes up again. The first encounter is usually placed in Wexford County in 1887, during the height of Michigan's logging era. The setting feels almost designed for a nightmare. Lumbermen worked in isolated camps surrounded by dense forest. The labor was exhausting and dangerous. Nights were almost completely dark. An animal could remain invisible while still being close enough to hear. According to the familiar story, a group of lumbermen noticed an animal they believed was a dog. They chased it toward a hollow log. One of them approached and began poking inside. Then the animal released a terrible scream. It emerged from the log and stood upright. That moment is said to mark the Dogman's entrance into Michigan history. But there is a problem. There are no known camp records confirming the encounter, no contemporary newspaper report, no surviving statement written in 1887. Even the number of witnesses changes between versions. Some stories mention 2 lumberjacks. Others describe an entire group. Some claim the men abandoned the camp and were never heard from again. That does not prove nothing happened. Logging camps produced countless oral stories never recorded. Workers moved, records vanished, and a man describing a dog standing like a person might have been ridiculed. But it means 1887 is not a secure historical starting point. It is a claimed starting point. And that difference matters, because the best-known version of the encounter did not emerge from an archive. It became famous through a recording created exactly 100 years later. Still, the logging camp story established the detail that survives through almost every later account. The creature does not simply look like a large dog. It makes a decision to stand. A bear can rise onto its hind legs. A dog can balance briefly. A wolf can lift itself to investigate or threaten. But Dogman witnesses describe something more deliberate. The animal straightens its body, looks directly at them, and remains upright, as if revealing a form it had been hiding. That movement breaks the category inside the witness's mind. 1 second, the observer sees an animal. The next, the animal appears to understand that it has been recognized. Several decades after the alleged logging camp encounter, a man named Robert Fortney reportedly described an experience built around precisely that detail. The story places Fortney near the Muskegon River in 1937. Fishing, wild dogs approaching, and then one rising onto 2 legs, remaining upright and looking at him. Fortney survived, supposedly keeping the story private for 50 years. There is no 1937 report confirming the event. On April 1st, 1987, Fortney heard a radio song describing a creature similar to what he had seen. He contacted the station and his private memory entered the Michigan Dogman legend. This account can be interpreted in two ways. The first version is favored by believers. The singer invented Dogman, but Fortney reported a prior encounter matching the creature. If Fortney's memory was accurate, the song gave a name to something already seen. The second is psychological. Memory is flexible, absorbing new story elements. Fortney may have reinterpreted an old but real encounter with dogs after hearing the 1987 song. The broadcast may have unlocked or rewritten a memory. There is no evidence separating those possibilities. Fortney's encounter seems to confirm the cycle because it supposedly happened in 1937, but it only entered the Dogman legend after the song announced the significance of seventh years. Does his story prove the cycle, or was it made to fit by memory and storytelling? To understand what happened, we need to enter the radio studio where the modern legend began. In 1987, Steve Cook worked at WTCM-FM in Traverse City. He was interested in folklore and decided to create a monster for northern Michigan for April Fool's Day. Cook did not create a werewolf, but something permanently between two categories: a canine creature capable of standing, moving, and vocalizing like a person. He wrote a poem, placed it over keyboard music, titled it The Legend, and credited a fictional performer. It was played on air without much warning. At first, nothing happened when the recording played. Then listeners called. One wanted to know more. Another claimed a relative had seen something similar. Then Fortney called. More people described encounters or family stories. The Dogman suddenly had witnesses. Before the broadcast, people had no common name for what they believed they had encountered. Dogman gave the image a category. With a name, memories and patterns could be recognized and discussed. The song became highly requested and spread beyond radio. Listeners did not just repeat the creature's name, they repeated the timeline inside the song. It covered a series of years ending in 7, moving from 19th century to the present, making the calendar seem less like coincidence than destiny. Narratives require rhythm, and the 10-year cycle gave the song that rhythm. Each seventh year felt like a countdown, making appearances seem inevitable. By the final warning, the audience expected another appearance. The calendar was part of the horror, and the reason the pattern persists. Only a few months after the song aired, something attacked an isolated cabin near Luther, Michigan. The door screen was torn apart, molding was bitten or pulled away. Wildlife officers examined the marks, finding paw prints consistent with an ordinary dog. Yet the timing, shortly after the Dogman song, was perfect for the legend. People visited the cabin, newspapers covered the story, and many associated the damage with Michigan's Dogman. The sequence, song, witness reports, then the cabin attack, seemed too perfect for believers to dismiss. The official explanation, a normal dog, provided resistance for the legend to persist. If the attack had occurred in a year other than 1987, would it have been linked to Dogman at all? The date transformed a dog attack into evidence of the supernatural. Investigation moved backward. People searched history for stories fitting the legend, and family memories gained new meaning. This is how legends recruit the past. Most people do not consciously fabricate memories. They reinterpret incomplete ones. Stories that fit the cycle are remembered. Those that do not are forgotten. Reports of upright canines occur outside seventh years, but folklore classifies matching ones as evidence, and others as ordinary or irrelevant. In 1997, with the legend now known, people anticipated a return. Incidents that would have seemed mundane now gained significance. No biological specimens appeared, but the impression of more reports confirmed the prophecy to believers. The cycle sustained itself through attention and expectation. 10 years later, in 2007, the Gable film appeared. It looked like old home movie footage of a dogman attacking the camera operator. Many believed it was the evidence they had been waiting for. Frame analysis split believers and skeptics, especially since the film's timing matched another seventh year. Investigators traced the footage to its creator. It was staged with costumes and aging effects. No one died. Despite the confession, edited clips and the legend survived. For many, the debunking was ignored. Online folklore showed a frightening image always spreads faster than its correction. By 2007, the seventh year's power was understood. Releasing new Dogman content fulfilled the prophecy. By 2017, internet and social media spread the legend globally. With another seventh year, the audience was primed for new reports and retellings. Accounts emerged about encounters on rural roads and forests. Many were detailed and emotional, but details do not guarantee verification. Reports were often anonymous, vague, or lacked evidence. As 2017 was already designated as a Dogman year, every story confirmed the narrative. There was no standard for what would count as a return, so the cycle could never fail. Strong evidence confirmed the legend. Rumors accounted for a hidden creature. If nothing happened, people claimed the reports were yet to emerge. Sincere fear and misidentification played their part, but darkness, fear, and expectation created the rest. Northern Michigan contains bears, coyotes, dogs, and wolves. All could be prototypes for Dogman sightings. Bears can stand upright. Coyotes make strange noises. Dogs grow large. Injuries distort appearance. Darkness and fear fill in missing details, especially once the legend is known. Explaining most encounters as misidentifications does not solve every case. Some remain unexplained simply because there's too little information. Unexplained does not mean supernatural or proof. It means incomplete information. And now, the calendar approaches its next test, 2027. Anticipation has already begun. Old stories will circulate, more cameras will be set up, and more people will search the woods. Honest mistakes, fabrications, and ambiguous videos are inevitable. Almost certainly, an incident will be called the return, and the cycle will appear to repeat. The true test should not be whether any story emerges. Stories are inevitable with so many people and cameras. The real test is whether evidence becomes stronger, recordings examined, dates and locations verified, multiple independent witnesses, physical evidence collected. Without standards, only the legend's strength is measured, not proof of a creature. When the Dogman timeline is listed, 1887, 1937, 1957, and so on, it looks impressive. But some years have named witnesses, others do not. Encounters outside the cycle are excluded. The timeline resembles the structure of a song, not a zoological record. Steve Cook did not start with a verified archive. He created the song as an April Fool's feature. The selected dates gave his story historical momentum, and the repetition of sevens turned disconnected events into a countdown. The number 7 gives the monster a clock, and a clock creates anticipation. The 10-year cycle was not discovered, it was created. That is the central revelation. The cycle is a narrative device, not biological evidence. It made people remember the Dogman, but did not create every experience attached to it. Northern Michigan already contained everything needed for scary encounters: forests, roads, cabins, animals, and stories. Cook didn't invent the fear, he gave it a modern form. The broadcast connected old memories into a coherent legend. People's memories became reinterpreted as Dogman encounters and slotted into the calendar. Events that matched reinforced the pattern. Others were forgotten. Expectation created attention. Attention produced reports. Reports sustained expectation. The Dogman never needed to return every 10 years. The story returned for it. There is no reliable evidence that the Dogman follows a 10-year cycle. The famous pattern was popularized by a song, and early encounters are unverified or fabricated. But if the legend will return, the answer is yes, it is already returning. Every mention of 2027 strengthens the countdown and the legend. Anyone seeing an upright animal at the road's edge will likely reset the calendar. The disturbing truth is not that the Dogman returns every decade, but that we do, waiting. In 2027, the creature won't need to seek us out. We'll already be watching for it.